I'm not going to read like your whole book, I promise, out loud, but this is something that I feel like it just was one of those, like, my page is dog-eared, it's underlined multiple times. Quote, this is page 14. The stances that are the most rooted in justice deserve the most consideration. The stances that have been the most rigorously considered deserve the most consideration. Most important, the stances that are true deserve the most consideration. And the idea that the classroom needs to be a place where the truth is unabashedly the standard. And I feel like that matters so much right now. And it probably has never been harder to facilitate with that as your goal in this current moment, because of pressure outside and also pressure inside. But I don't know, like, what do you tell a teacher who's like, you know what, I'm really worried about what kids will say if I talk about X, Y, or Z in my classroom, and they're resistant to having those conversations and facilitating them? What's your guidance to that teacher who's holed up by that?
First off, I would say that I understand and respect their reluctance to have certain conversations in certain contexts. I own my privilege to be teaching where I teach, and I have supportive administration. I have a lot of the ingredients, and that allows me, which means I have a lot of experience. I'm very good at what I do, but that doesn't mean that at the same time I know the context in which I do it. And so I don't want to ever, like, if someone is teaching in a place where they do not have a supportive administrator, it would be weird of me to be like, well, go ahead and do it. Like, that's not fair. Or if you're in a community where, like, that's going to cost you your job or something like that, I respect it. What I will say is that why I tried to focus on questions here is partially in with that teacher in mind. I feel like of all of the things that teachers are told about why their conversations aren't going well, super rarely do we mention the questions weren't what they needed to be. We always talk about privilege and personality and stuff like that, and all this deep soul searching stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's good work, but also, like, just if you change this word, then it would have popped. Like, it's not like, yes, do all the reflection and do all of that stuff, but also, like, center the question. And I feel like in those contexts, it's especially important that it's the prompt. So if you ask the question that gets the kids thinking, it's not you preaching to the kids. And I think it's a massive difference. A lot of times when we think about having those quote unquote truthful conversations in whatever context that means, like the truth about, whatever we're talking about, in situations where the truth is uncomfortable, it's super important that that truth doesn't come from us all of the time as just a statement or a lecture. It's got to come with really good questions. I think the example I give, like this past year from the end of my book Thief unit. Um, um, Sorry for the spoilers, but it's
Yeah, it's
pretty
okay. It's
popular.
been
But
around enough. Like,
the bombs
yeah,
fall, everybody dies, and at the end, right? And we have I talked about, it's like, part of the thing that Zusak does with the book is, like, good people die, bad people die, like everybody die, like, and the reader has to sit with and I think that that was intentional. And I have to say, well, I have the kids, I show them the Geneva Conventions, I just show it to them. They said, well, a few years after this, in the timeline, the countries got together, and then they look at a simplified version of the conventions, and I have some good prompts about it, and it's like, one was like, they're all simple. It's like, what are the complications of making rules for warfare, right? And the kids are like, well, who's going to follow it? Like, if you're a bad guy, you're not going to follow it. Like, those kind of things. And then ask, like, in your opinion, have they been followed? And that is, there are so many ways that I could have that second conversation that get me in trouble, where I just start naming different places and making my political blah blah blah. But if I just trust me, when they were in small groups wrestling with that prompt, they had all of the conversations that I was going to have, but it came from them. And it was like, when they spoke and they were mentioning recent wars, and they were mentioning wars from from my childhood, and they were mentioning, and they were like, well, I heard this happen. Well, I heard this happen. And they were clarifying each other's understanding, and like, well, this rule says this. Well, how come this country was able to do this? Those are real adult questions. And I think that's what a classroom should be. And I didn't preach at them. I didn't I didn't bring in my politics. I just, have they been followed? Think of some examples. What are some things that pop to mind? And I think if you're in a place where that's going to get you in trouble, you need to teach somewhere else, because then you're in a place that's not allowing you to be a teacher. And so while you're teaching, keep your resume active, because you're not going to be your best self in that space. But I feel like in most places, that framing is something that works, because it's student centered. It's about you're working the state standards, you're working the Common Core, you're working whatever through good prompts, and you're getting at truthful stuff, but you're not preaching at the kids. You're not proselytizing your beliefs to the kids. You're just asking a really good question. And it's not even a leading question. Kid can say yes. I'm not aware of them not being I'm not even leading. Have they been followed? What do you think? How's it working? But are there still war crimes? What happens? And it turns into a research question. It turns into all sorts of stuff that's academic and good.